Welcome back, everybody. 10-1 News Channel. And the topic that I wish to discuss today is race and equality. And that's the very purpose for me having this video today, is to reinvigorate, is to revitalize, and to refocus those of a higher melanin count here in America. Now, the one thing I want to refrain from is to use the word Negro. Now, Negro comes from the Spanish word for black, but the Spanish word Negro actually comes from the Latin word, which is Necro, which means dead. And I don't want to address the dead people, so I want to go ahead and take that Negro word. I don't want to put that in my I wish not to use this or be referred to by that word, me personally, again, box. The second thing I don't want to have to address or actually be identified by is African American. Now, for me, it is not possible from a logistical, logical, or even technical standpoint to refer to myself as somebody who is at two places or of two places at one time, and then identify myself as something that I either have not been or do not wish to go to or go back to. Especially, and this is where the technicality and the thing that bothers me the most here as an American, is to identify myself as something where my forefathers have not given up. They have not foregone their own nationality in order to achieve a status here. So I do not see how a people taken from their domicile, their homes, their native lands, who have not forfeited their nationality, brought to a new land, and then given a word that's a hybrid term and is not in keeping of any particular region at all. It's a whole continent rather than a particular country. Now, the difference comes in where if you're an Italian, that's actually referring to a country. If you're German, that's referring to a country. If you're Native American, from a literal standpoint, if we're just taking it from consensus standpoint, that's actually referring to the indigenous people, presumably, here in America. And that can be localized in one country. Because Native Americans are not considered Native Americans or called Native Americans in another country. Only in America. So for me to be referred to by a hybridized term that's referring to a continent of people and not a particular people only disperses us even further. Another term that actually bothers me as well is to be called African. Now, for me, in researching the Dred Scott case, Dred Scott was actually right in his premise to sue. However, if one were to refer back to the documents and the findings by the Supreme Court and the one who dissented, that it's not that his position was improper. The findings were that the plaintiff was in error because he tried to sue for his freedom under a slave name. And because he was living under slave conditions, but wanting to have the freedoms of a free man, he created within himself, or the circumstance were created for him to live in paradox. Extreme paradox, unbeknownst to himself. So had he simply sued, changed his name under his country of origin, and reclaimed his country of origin here in America, he would have won. But he did not do that. And they would not and are not trying to equip him with the proper tools to do that. Next. nigger. Nigger is actually a term, no matter how affectionately you use it, as a derogatory term. Nigger is actually a short version of nigger, or a reference to the black slaves taken from Niger, which then manifested itself as a dissenting form of what we would see as a darker skinned person, or reference to anything that had already been referred to thus far in this video. No matter how you chop it up, no matter how much you internalize it, nigger will always mean something derogatory. No matter how many people who fall within the bracket to use it as such continue to use it, it will always be a derogatory term. Always. Because the value that was originally subscribed to it or ascribed to it will always be derogatory. No matter how much you branch out, the root of it will always be derogatory. However, the root of the word nigger that we use affectionately from its derogatory root actually is built upon the precepts of negus, N-E-G-U-S. Now, negus actually means king, god, or sovereign of Kemet Nu. So, if you were to refer to somebody else, that's my negus, N-E-G-U-S, and mean it as such, you would be ascribing it to the value that you normally ascribe it to nigger, N-I-G-G-E-R, or N-I-G-G-A. Now, for me to utilize a term